Big Mama's house. Big Mama's house. Welcome to Big Mama's house. Big Mama's house. Yeah. Big Mama's house. Welcome to Big Mama's house. Big Mama's house. Yeah.
Welcome back to Big Mama's house, y'all. It is I, Big Mama, here again today to discuss some Sister Wives book nonsense with my favorite people, all y'all. We're doing chapter 2 called Janelle and Cody, and this is again from their book, Becoming Sister Wives, the Story of an Unconventional Marriage. We've already done the prologue in chapter 1, which was about Mary and Cody. So now we're moving on to wife number 2, Janelle. Now, before I get started, I really want to say that each wife in here mentions certain things that could be clinically relevant, that could make that oh moment. You know what I mean? Like now it kind of makes sense that everything's kind of ticking in place, and we kind of see where psychologically and mentally speaking where some of these people took the turns they did. You know what I mean? Um, but then they just kind of pass over it and never mention it again. Um, I will try to be more specific as we go about that. But I know that there was like the whole thing in the chapter 1 about Mary and the lady who almost married her dad, and then a few years later there's another lady, and then it's just where are the details? You know what I mean? And I realize that the details of her father's romantic life are not, completely and like totally relevant to the book, but I think there's some important information that we're missing there, particularly in regards to the fathers. There's some major issues going on there, and it's just like I'm getting, you know, my mom radar is going off. It's like telling me there's like something weird happening. So I guess we'll find out together, won't we? Or maybe we won't. Maybe the truth will never come out. But I kind of hope it will, because some of these ladies, the things that they are even saying here in the book before they realized how much would come back maybe to haunt them, that it was maybe a little more honest at sometimes than they were maybe meant to be. Okay, so chapter 2, and we're going to start with Janelle's point of view. She said that her father died when she was 2 years old, and her mother remarried, but her stepfather was not a hands-on father. I'm assuming maybe it's one of those things of, well, oh, well, it's not my kid, so, I'll provide for her and whatever, but, she's not my biological child, so I don't have time for all that. And again, I'm speculating, but knowing the male patriarchy of that kind of society and how um, women were more delegated to the roles of the children and kind of thing, it seems to me like there would be a lot of sexism and a lot of, especially in that kind of closed community, a lot of that leaving and divorcing and swapping wives. I guess it's more normal there. I'm not sure. Again, if anybody out there knows for sure, has more like detailed info, like I am also a big fan of Moroni Jessup. He is a called the punk rock polygamist, and I know he does more. Maybe it's TikTok that he does, but he's got some very cool information about the history of polygamy and stuff. Um, Janelle says that her stepfather was distant and emotionally unavailable. Now, I don't doesn't say exactly when her stepfather got married, but if her father died when she was 2, and these women again are not trained to be able to hold jobs or, work outside the home and provide for themselves. So I'm assuming that she got a pretty quick turnaround on husband number 2. Um, and that's kind of sad. And she said that she knew that she would look for a man who would be intimately engaged in every aspect of our children's lives. And she goes on later to say that that's one of the things that drew her to Cody. And she says here, her grandmother is the one that told her that there were polygamists, in out there, and and before that, she had no idea that polygamy was a thing that it even existed. Even though she grew up in the LDS church her entire life. I guess it's not something that you would really want to tell children, though, because it might confuse them. And obviously, the regular Mormon church people don't want their kids running off to be polygamous. So they probably are like, well, let's not talk about that. She says she thought it was a myth or something from the early days of Mormonism, an old fashioned tradition that had long since been abandoned. But she had been dating a young man named Adam, who happened to be Mary Brown's brother. Okay. And he courted uh Janelle, but he had to convert to the LDS church to be able to really court her and think about marriage. And he did convert, and they got married soon after. But her husband Adam wasn't really interested in his faith in a major way, especially not the fundamentalist one. I think he just joined to be able to marry Janelle. But and again, there's got to be stories there. She's never discussed her first marriage really. And I know that there were no children from it, which honestly, from the sounds of the guy, it's probably a blessing. Um, but why did you divorce? Why did you marry him? What was the draw? What was, as a human being and as a woman, she has a right to tell her story. And just because it doesn't maybe ring with the idea of the perfect polygamous family, it is still her story and her journey of how she got here. So I think it's relevant. I mean, what do you guys think? That's just maybe it's just me. I might be crazy. Um, she was very taken with Adam and Mary's family because Adam was Mary's brother, and they were, as we have talked about in chapter 1 with Mary, her father had many wives and like 27 children besides Mary, and it was a very large, boisterous, loud, happy family, and she liked that. And she liked that the women seemed strong and independent and had an equal say in family affairs with their husbands. That's not really the thing that we picture, I don't think, whenever we think of Mormon or fundamentalist Mormon women. We don't think of them as being, independent and strong and having an equal say. So if that was what she saw and what her experience was, I commend that because I've got to believe that not every single polygamous family out there is a bunch of nutballs. You know what I mean? It's like, or forcing themselves to stay together with people they don't particularly care for out of fear or for money or whatever. That becomes abusive very quickly, in my opinion, with the thoughts and the feelings, and especially if one person harbors more feelings than the other. Um, Anyway, Janelle goes on to say, unfortunately, Adam and I had problems right from the start. We weren't spiritually, emotionally, or romantically compatible. We lived together for only 6 months before he moved out. So I would really, man, I wish she would write a real, honest tell all. I mean, I know that she has children, and I respect that. I have adult children as well. And there were some things about my history and stuff that I haven't told them because I don't maybe think that they're in the right place to learn about certain things. But for the most part, I've been fairly open as they become older about mistakes that we've made, and how to, like, if you don't know that a danger exists, you don't know to be wary of it. You know what I mean? That's kind of my opinion on that, especially as they get to be older teenagers and young adults. Um, and she said, although my husband and I had separated, I remained close to his family, including Adam's sister Mary. And then they go on again to talk about the large family and how much she liked it. And she said that she went to a meeting one night, as an informal spiritual get together, is what she called it. And her ex husband's sister Mary was there. And she says, since I married her brother, I was friendly with Mary. Okay? Keep that in mind, folks, because all we've heard all these years is how miserable Mary and Janelle were together. But they're claiming in this book that they were friends before any of that ever happened. So it's not like they walked into it all this blind of each other. And so I find that also quite interesting. Either there's a lot of revisionist history in this book and it's all bullshit, or some of it is true and some of it maybe have been exacerbated or exaggerated for the show, for the drama. Which one could be true? Maybe both in a little bit of, you know what I mean? I would love for Janelle to write us a book. So, here we go. Here comes Cody. What are we gonna do? So she's at this informal spiritual get together. She says that evening when Cody walked into the house to join the party, the strangest feeling washed over me. I felt as if I had forgotten something and suddenly remembered it. It was a feeling of relief and recognition. But I was in the middle of a horrible divorce and I had no idea how to handle the sensation Cody's entrance conjured in me. So I packed it away and made a mental note to deal with it later. Wow, that is a very impactful paragraph. Okay, let's unpack it a little bit. So she had this instant connection, right? Whether it was a physical response, I can't, I'm my personal opinion. You cannot have an emotional response to someone, you know what I mean, that you don't know, just by them walking in the room. Okay, so I'm thinking it's more physical. But as you'll come to see with the rest of everyone's stories, is that none of them have any kind of bedroom training. They don't know what to expect, most of them. They don't know, and the boys too. Okay, they don't know how to work it. They don't know how to make it nice for the ladies. They don't, I mean, I fully believe, okay, that there is a rumor that Cody and Mary had to be taught how to make babies. Um, I don't know. I don't know if I believe it, but I'm just saying it would not shock me if these very, very sheltered, um, un, you know, un, I don't know what the word is. They've had no advice. They've had no education about how bodies work. So again, if you don't know the instructions for something, how do you work it properly? You know what I mean? Again, my opinion. So at this time, whenever Janelle had this wonderful feeling, Cody and Marie were still Marie, sorry. I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm having a rough day. Cody and Mary were still courting. Okay? So I'm sure that all crossed her mind at the same time. But the fact that she says, I packed it away and made a mental note to deal with it later, that is somebody that has amazing, monumental compartmentalization skills. Like, I'm pretty good at putting away feelings until, like, it's an appropriate time to deal with them. But, damn, just saying. She continues to say, my divorce was not yet finalized, so I still attended certain functions with my estranged husband. One of these was Mary and Cody's wedding. I don't understand. Can she not attend if she's not with a man? Um, were they trying to like maybe force them back together to see if, you know, it would work out? I again, Janelle, girl, write us a book. I need more details. Deep dive on me, okay? I need it. Okay, and now we're on to Cody's perspective. He says, I had seen older men marrying women who had children by their first husbands. I didn't think that I should or could bring other people's children into my life and merge my family with someone else's. Huh. Interesting. So, if Janelle had had a child, she would never have been a member of the Brown family. I guess that's what he's saying. And I guess by the time Robin came around, that feeling no longer worked for him. I don't know. Again, there's a lot of you're with me, right? You know that this is all a little bit, yeah, okay. Not just me. Good to know. And he says about Mary and Janelle, the women had developed a friendship of their own, independent of Mary's brother. Again, here's Cody and Janelle saying that Mary and Janelle became friends. Okay. And he said, and through Mary, I got to know Janelle. And he recognized Janelle's intelligence, and conversation always flowed easily between us. Janelle had always been career-minded. Later it says, Janelle was very forthcoming about her life. She complained about the guys she was dating and how immature and unsatisfactory they were. Immediately a thought popped into my head. Janelle should marry a guy like me. I thought it was the perfect solution to Janelle's problem. Oh my God, because Cody Brown's the answer to everyone's problems, don't you know? He says, back then I was young and arrogant, but I was also naive. I thought that I was everything Janelle was looking for. Hot damn. Well, let's see what happens next. So, okay, it goes on about Janelle and the bad dating, and they all hang out as buddies and whatever. And it comes as where he says, I tried to be as offhanded as possible when I said to Janelle, maybe you and I should consider you and me. Man, that's a breathtaking little statement right there. Everybody give yourself a little fan. Ooh, I got a little warm just reading it. Woo, hot dang. Okay. Okay, thank goodness. We're back to Janelle's perspective because Cody was getting me a little hot and bothered there for a second. So, whew, okay. I can power through. Don't worry. Janelle. Um, she was invited to go spend some time in Wyoming with people in Cody's area. And her mom didn't want her to go, but she knew me well enough not to tell me not to do something. See, me, Janelle, I knew you and I were soul sisters, okay? Because I'm the exact same way. Tell me I can't do something, and motherfucker, I will do it just to show you I can. Because that's how mama rolls. You don't, you don't tell a woman what she can and can't do. I mean, yes, these people were young. We're talking like 19 and 22-year-olds, okay? Um, but for all they knew, they were grown and knew it all, just like we all were grown and knew it all at 19 and 22. Okay, sorry, back to it. So mom decided to come along for the weekend to Wyoming to kind of chaperone, make sure there was, no hanky panky. And she said part of her wanted to meet a polygamous family and see what they were like, and part of her wanted to protect me from them. Interesting. And then she says, when Cody's father, Wynn, arrived and met my mother, they had an instant chemistry. Okay, all this instant chemistry these people are having, again, I've got to say, it doesn't sound like a satisfactory sex life. I'm just saying. If you can get a married man like Cody Brown, can get all hot and excited about a woman, and, he has to have it so bad that he's forced to marry her just to get it. I don't know. To me, that's what it sounds like. They're talking about all these emotions and chemicals and, oh, instant attractions and, oh, like, I know, I don't, I remember what it was like to be that young and have that, ooh, who's that moment, or, to be making googly eyes across the room at somebody and flirting and that that little flush you get, and you get so it's like, oh. But again, we were dating, most of us at that period, not settling down with the first person that, asked you to go out or asked your father if he could go out with you. Like, okay, that's more like it with these guys. But I don't, to me, I need to talk to someone who lived it. I would like to have a male perspective, someone maybe more like Moroni Jessup, who saw the good and the bad and tried to, find the good way. I would love to talk to a woman who is in a polygamous marriage. Um, Not one of the Browns. I love you, but no. Um, to get a different perspective, because I love to know about people and their cultures and their religions and their beliefs and why. You know what I mean? I want to know why all this is cool. Explain it to me, because I'm not being facetious. I really want to know. So anybody out there, you want to reach out to me? I will bring you on. I will be respectful. You will have full editing control. Anything that you don't like, we will not air. Just putting it out there. Okay. Now, this next section is about Cody. And he said, I'm not sure Mary quite understood what I was hinting at. Whenever Cody was saying that Janelle was getting in her own way by bringing all these different guys around and dating all these different fellas. And he was just like, man, she's getting in her own way. And he's like, Mary didn't get it. Because again, Mary is madly in love with her new husband. They're still newlyweds. She's just thinking they're hanging out with a friend. And I really don't think that Mary had any inclination of Cody thinking of Janelle as a wife. But this is what he says about his feelings for Janelle. It wasn't born out of the same conventionally romantic attraction I had to Mary. More to do with spirituality and intellectual capability. Hang on, I didn't read that right, y'all. One that had more to do with spirituality and intellectual compatibility, romantic love. I don't know how intellectual and spiritual. That's not romantic love at all. That's spiritual and intellectual. That's called a friend. Just saying. But he said, I found her extremely attractive. Okay. Okay. Now, next episode will be about Christine. Okay. But I'm going to say it here. You heard it here, folks, guys. Oh my gosh. You heard it here, folks. First, I can't talk. I'm so sorry. You heard it here first, guys, that he found her attractive, whether it was spiritually or intellectually, but he had some sort of an attraction to her. Now, at the time when these things were happening, Mary was a little bitty tiny 19-year-old girl. Okay. Janelle was a little bit more of a mature woman and more of a full-figured woman. And he seemed perfectly fine with that. Okay. Not a big deal. I think, do not get me wrong, I'm not talking about her weight as a negative thing. I'm just saying later on he says something about Christine's weight when he met her, but I'm pretty sure Janelle was bigger. So, just gonna point out the hypocrisies again, folks. That's all I'm doing. Okay, back to Janelle. She said, I allowed myself the luxury of admitting that I was interested in Cody. Not in a saccharine, gushy, romantic way, but because he was emblematic of all the things that attracted me to his face. Again, there was no love. It was, spiritual connection, intellectual. And there's nothing wrong with that. And if you are comfortable and happy and content with that being the basis of your marriage, God bless you. I am not taking it away from anyone. But I also believe that every person, especially every woman, deserves to have a partner who makes her feel like the most beautiful, gorgeous, intelligent, amazing, fabulous woman that ever walked the earth. She deserves to have a spouse who can pleasure her in the bedroom. Okay? I don't think that any of those things are bad things to say out loud, you know? And don't get me wrong, I think men deserve the same thing. They deserve to be treated like the kings and, all that stuff. If they want to be feel like that of the family, that's cool, do that. Whatever it is. But women need to feel wanted. Men need to feel needed. Okay? Women need to feel wanted. Just saying. Okay. And remember, at this point, Janelle's only 22. Okay? So I think Cody was also at the same time. So Mary's a few years younger. Um, so at this point we're going on, and Cody's father, Wynn, married Janelle's mother. So that's a little awkward now that they were thinking about maybe courting and whatever. But hey, hmm. And she goes on to say, perhaps because my stepfather was so distant, I took notice of how closely this man connected to his kids. She's referring to a neighbor. And she said, I remember thinking how badly I wanted a dad like that. Now, any of us as kids who have been deprived of something, whether it be nice clothes or new shoes or, you know, whatever it is, if you've been deprived, especially of love and affection and attention from a parental figure, that leaves a bit of a hole in you. And through our lives, we learn how to fill that hole, hopefully with good things, with other family members and our children and our work and our friends and our hobbies and all those things. But there's still a hole. And she knew that a good dad was important for children because she didn't have one. So I think that is a big, big thing about how she's trying to live a little bit vicariously through her kids by giving them a great dad. Again, my opinion. She goes on to say, I've seen how loving Cody was and how much fun he could be. He even made time for kids not in his own family. He was energetic and caring, always willing to get down on all fours for any game the kids dreamed up. Cody seemed like exactly the father I had in mind for my kids. So, of course, we're seeing the psychological part of this, right, everybody, about how with Mary, she was very shy and awkward and very, didn't make friends easy. And now Janelle is, a little bit emotionally repressed. And I mean, you can tell it by the way she's like, I'm going to take these strong feelings and put them away and we'll just deal with those later. I mean, it's like, you can see how psychology is so important when trying to figure people out. She said, more than anything, I had fallen in love with a polygamous lifestyle. I loved the idea of a sisterhood, the notion of companionship, and the possibility of a family that could grow in so many different ways. Again, she wanted to feel part of a big family. And again, maybe filling that hole, trying to fill that hole a little bit. And she's like, I've never been, she doesn't like the Google eyes and the flowers and the chocolates. And the idea of cooing and cuddling doesn't agree with me, she says. So I know I have a friend like that, Auntie 420. I mean, she's not anti-hugging. All that stuff. She's not a real big snuggler. She's a very hot person, like naturally. And so why would she want to be on someone else who's just going to add that heat to her own self is kind of the way she thinks about it. And so I don't have an issue with people who aren't big aren't touchy-feely. I am touchy-feely. I am a hugger. I will hold your hand. I will give you, I've given strangers hugs that I saw crying in the bar. Okay. I don't have a problem with showing affection. So to me, though, the idea of not being like that is fine. You don't have to be all, gooey and whatever. Um, she said, I've always been independent and happy to spend time on my own and do my own thing. So I've never felt the need to bind myself to someone on an intimate level. Well, that's interesting. Interesting. Uh, but yet at 22, she's twice married, but she doesn't feel a need to bind herself to someone on an intimate level. Okay. She says, I think my early failed marriage disillusioned me somewhat, solidifying my notion of matrimony as something both pragmatic and practical. I wanted a strong husband who would be a wonderful father to my children. And again, it comes back to her kids. And I think Janelle, I mean, as we've all seen, has always been about her kids. Yes, she's more of, I like my time away. I need to have that job. I need to use my brain because I am that person. Since I became disabled, I feel like I've lost at least half of my mental capability because you don't use it and you lose it. You know what I mean? So it's like, I get that. I feel that in my soul, I feel it. Um, I wanted a man with whom I'd have an intellectual connection, who would be happy and willing to have long discussions with me. I wanted a companion, a friend. And if I found those things in a man, I was certain intimacy would develop from that. Um, well, you may have been certain about it, and intimacy as far as sex can definitely be done. And I mean, obviously, in many, people can force themselves to do it. You don't have to be attracted to someone to have sex with them. To me, the intimacy that is amazing in my marriage is the fact that he is my best friend. We have a great time together doing nothing. We have a great time together having amazing adventures. We have, I tell him everything. And hopefully he tells me everything, but that's trust. Um, but I don't know. To me, conversations about business and money and how to like do that, that's not an intimate conversation. An intimate conversation is telling him about your own father, about how awful your stepdad was, how much that hurt you, all of that crap. That's intimacy. Someone who knows all of your deepest, darkest, your most scabbed and scarred places in your heart, and they work to make it better, you know? Um, I don't, to me, that's the intimacy that I think she's talking about, because I don't think sex was like the forefront in any of these people's minds except for Cody. I mean, yeah, the ladies were getting all, oh my gosh, he's looking at me, oh, oh, does my hair look okay? But they had no idea about sex. I don't think. And she says here, he was the best guy I knew in the polygamous lifestyle. That doesn't say much for the rest of those fellas, and I hope that's not true. Um, Maybe the public Cody was awesome, but yeah, we'll get there. Okay. We're back to Cody's perspective. It always comes back to Cody. Um, Janelle says to him, I think I belong in your family. And he said, months earlier, I had told Mary about my interest in a relationship with Janelle, but it was more of an impromptu suggestion than a serious proposal. Who does that? I mean, do they just sit around going, oh, she's nice. Oh, maybe her. Oh, what do you think about her? And okay, as a wife, even though I may agree with it in the faith and the principle, and I've had the calling, and I believe in it with all my heart, it is still crazy hard, almost for me impossible, to share your husband. Okay, especially when you're young, especially whenever you just got married, especially when you were married for a few years and you haven't gotten pregnant. So I'm just putting it out there. And he says, we've been married for 3 years and had 3 wonderful years of monogamy. Speaking of Mary. Back then, we were still very young and didn't have the wisdom or the vocabulary to talk about our deepest emotions. So if something was troubling her, meaning Mary, I fear she would have been unable to express it in a way I understood. Damn. I mean, maybe it took him 15 or 20 years to look back and maybe realize that, or maybe some ghostwriter wrote it to make him seem relatable and nice. But that is so freaking true. I mean, about all of them, really. None of them, again, had any kind of emotional maturity. Because I'm sorry, if you don't get your heart broke a few times, then how do you know you're finding the good one? Like, at least Janelle went through a bad one and figured out, well, hey, at least this guy over here, he's got one wife that's happy, and I talked to her, and I know she's happy with him, and we're friends, and she wouldn't lie to me, and we hang out all the time, and I see how great he is, so he's safe, because I already know what I'm in for. See what I'm saying there, guys? And he says, for various reasons, courtships for second and third wives are traditionally quite short. The most important of these is that it's neither appropriate for a married man to be spending excessive time with a woman who is not his wife, nor is it fair for the other wives to sit at home during a long courtship. Okay, and we kind of have heard that through the years about different things, so that makes kind of sense, but um, it still, to me, is the number one precursor for their destruction. Because if you don't get to really know someone as intimates, you could be friends with someone, but I mean, and yes, you get to know them better, I think, as a friend than you do as a initial dating partner, because we all lie to our initial dating partners and try to be better than we are. Um, but yeah, oh gosh, guys. And so he says, Janelle's mother had given me a ring that had been hers. So you're broke. Great. Yeah, okay, I got that. And 2 weeks later, we got married. Damn. And he says, we had no plan for our honeymoon. We just drove and drove, staying wherever we felt like stopping. That's exactly what happened with the honeymoon with Mary. Just got in the car and went. No big destination in mind. Just tank of gas and a cooler of sandwiches. It's cheap. That's all we could afford. Okay. Janelle. She says, our courtship had been chaste. We'd only shared one kiss, and it was a very innocent one. When a man is married, it's extremely inappropriate to have any physical intimacy during a courtship. Now, I know that Christine got a lot of crap for getting upset whenever it came out on the show that Robin and Cody kissed on the mouth openly a lot before they were married. But here's Janelle saying the same thing, but she's just not real. I guess she's not the jealous type. Maybe it didn't bother her as much. Maybe she disapproved, but figured, hey, he's the man, she's the wife, whatever. I'm not getting involved. But that's just more proof of how wrong he did his courtship with Robin. Okay. And she says, um, even though we'd had the spiritual ceremony, which committed us to each other in a newer, deeper way, I felt no closer to Cody than I had a week earlier. And she said, I know now that Cody and I weren't in love then. It doesn't, from anything she said, it doesn't sound like that's what she was looking for, or that's something that was even factored in to her request for a potential mate. You know what I mean? So I guess that's not really a shock. And says, although it was hard for me to come to terms with the estrangement from certain members of my family, I imagine that I'd have sister wives who would, at least in part, compensate for that loss. Because, some of their family members did not approve of their being polygamous. She said she felt pressure for her marriage to succeed right from the start. However, I had no idea how to go about this. And she said, now we have to find a way to make it work. And I especially because you only knew each other as friends. And again, you get that surface stuff, especially between Janelle and Cody, who were never allowed to be alone before they were courting, which only lasted like 2 weeks. You don't get to have those intimate conversations that get to know each other deep down kind of thing. You just get that surface, oh, well, we're just hanging out and it's a lot of fun and yada yada. So, yeah, they had to find a way to make it work down. And she says, but it would be many, many years into our marriage before our true love story would begin. I want to hear that story. When did the love story begin? How did it happen? What changed? Tell us, Janelle. We're dying to know. And she says, I didn't know when I married Cody what a struggle that first year would be. I moved into the house with him and Mary, and I lived in their guest room. I felt like a long-term visitor, an eternal guest wife, or guest house. Oh my gosh, guys. An eternal house guest instead of a wife. Now, okay, I have two feelings about this. One is, yes, it probably did feel that way. But on the second hand, those are her feelings. Nobody made her sit in the other chair. Nobody said, she couldn't say, hey, Cody, whenever we're all hanging out together, could we either all sit on the couch with you in the middle or like sit in separate seats or something? Because that kind of makes me uncomfortable and makes me feel left out. That's a choice she made to either, she may have had that conversation with him. Again, we weren't there, we don't know. But again, these guys had no words, no vocabulary, no, experience and using words to explain their feelings. So, it's sad. Reading this, it is just kind of, a lot of it makes me sad. And lastly, here she says, I felt challenged and confronted on all fronts. I lost my sense of self. I would have to learn to speak up for myself and establish my own life and status within our household. And that right there is her owning the fact that, hey, maybe at first I wasn't happy, but again, I didn't tell anybody about it. I didn't, I just sat back and took it without really making a fuss. And that goes, I mean, a lot of I'm not the most confrontational person. If you upset something about my husband or my kids, I will take you down. You can shit on me all day long. I don't really give a crap, whatever. But I will fiercely protect my husband and children. And I kind of feel like that's Janelle's situation too. Um, but I hope that she finds her voice soon, at least in the book, you know what I mean? 'Cause we know she has one now. Um, and it makes me so excited to see where she's gone from this book, where having no voice, to this last episode where she said, fuck you to Cody. Which, I mean, I laughed and clapped and screamed, and I was like fist pumping, going, yeah, Janelle, you tell him. So, if any of you are watching the new season of season 18 of Sister Wives, um, kind of keep these things in mind maybe when you're watching, to see like how, how it all came to be now, with thinking about where these people came from. But anyway, I know it's been a little long, and I was hoping to get through 2 chapters, but I can't stop talking about it because I'm a little bit obsessed now that I've gotten back into it. So, you all have a wonderful, wonderful night or day. I don't know when this is gonna. Hopefully, it'll get posted tomorrow. And y'all need to spay and neuter your pets, wear your seatbelts, be kind, and use your turn signals. Bye.